Love it here.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to try something a little bit different today. So the idea that we have is to understand the biography of like who Bobby is, but through the journey of music and through the artists and through the songs that have inspired you from a child, through your adolescence, up into through your career and to current day. So we're going to try and explore you through your music and through the music that's inspired you, if that's cool with you.
That's cool with me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So take it real back right to the start. So born in the Gold Coast
Yep.
of Polynesian descent. Like how much was your Polynesian heritage influential in music, and how did you first start getting exposed to music? What were your first real kind of influences there?
Yeah, my mum moved from Samoa to Australia. She actually moved to Labrador on the Gold Coast, and she was 23 and pregnant with me. So, you know, I think looking back at it now, it was my mum, basically her love for music and dance that was my main influence. So obviously, she's mid-20s, living in a foreign country, doesn't have any family. So she's singing and putting on the music that she loves and singing her traditional songs and that whole process, and that was my soundtrack really. And when uncles would visit over from Samoa, they'd be bringing the guitars out and bringing the drums out, and so much of their time spent together is with music. So it's we eat lots, we play music. So they were my teachers pretty much my whole childhood.
Yeah. And was there so your mum come over, so she was pregnant at the time when she moved to Australia. So was there any like support network or anything for your mum at the time?
It
Like
was
what was
really
the
tough.
community? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard for her, and I had no idea. But now, as I'm getting older and I'm passing her age that she was, and but sort of clocking it, I'm realizing how hard it would have been for her. She actually engaged with like a Polynesian community on the Gold Coast, and she was part of a dance group, and I think that was a real rock for her. You know, performing. She used to perform on. Yeah, she was like a touring artist basically, dancing all these Polynesian types of dances. And yeah, she linked up with some people from the Cook Islands, some Māori women, and they were all similar age, and they just would perform from week to week. So I think that was a real saving grace for her, just because Polynesia is all about family and community, and like just coming to this massive city. She used to live in a village. It's like, it's just bizarre. And I've been over there and it's so different. It's so slow. So even back in the 80s, I think she would have found, yeah, this society quite fast.
Yeah. And so was she traveling around through the country, or was it just around the Gold Coast that she was
Yeah, it
playing?
was around the country, like mainly the east coast of Australia.
Hmm.
Yeah, so she was on doing like cruise ships and, like lots of little gigs. And they were actually, sometimes when dad was working, I'd have to go with mum. And they're my first memories is, like kind of sleeping underneath the drums while they're doing the show, and like having to go to rehearsals, and like, I have to go to rehearsals with mum again, and it's so funny because it's like I've just done exactly the same thing as her.
So cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're born into music. Music was around you, literally. Sounds like it was physically around you. What came first then? Was it the ukulele, or was it the drums, or the guitar? Like, or was it singing? Like, what was the first move in?
I feel like it was definitely the drums. That's what I was drawn to. One of my mum's brothers he played drum kit in a rock and roll band, and I do remember seeing a drum kit when I was about 5 or 6 and just looking at it, fascinated. And yeah, there's a Samoan. Well, it's all over the Pacific, but in Samoa they call it a pate. It's like a piece of hollowed out piece of wood. There's one right here, and that is, yeah, I just remember finding some sticks and just kind of playing it when I was younger. And yeah, I think I never was forced to do it. That's the other thing about it. It was it was sort of like immersion. Like there were drums there were ukuleles there, and my family was always playing, so I could join or not. And I ended up, I guess I definitely joined.
Yeah, you definitely joined. So it wasn't like you must learn this. It's like just
Yeah,
things are around, so you started picking things up, playing with it. Literally, you're playing
yeah.
rather than
It was play.
Yeah.
100%.
yeah.
If anything, my mum was like, "Don't do music."
Really?
You know, and I get it. She wanted me to live a good life, and music isn't a career in Samoa. It's just something that happens.
Yeah. So what would you say is there any like what was the soundtrack to your very early childhood? Is there any particular songs that jump out that you'd like to play that would be definitive for your early years?
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, because in Samoa, reggae music is massive. You know, they love UB40, Lucky Dubé from South Africa, and Bob Marley, and it literally is everywhere. So that my soundtrack that I started to remember is my uncle's like jamming Bob Marley songs in the back. So yeah, I think this is one that they used to do a lot. Steer it up, little darling, steer it up. It's been a long, long time, and I've got you on my mind. Now that you are here, it is okay to see what we can do, baby. Just me and you, steer it up, little darling, steer it up. Oh, yeah, a lot of that was going on.
That's so great. So Bob Marley, UB40, did you say as
Yeah.
well? UB40 always blows my mind because like, don't they come from like a council estate in Birmingham?
It is
Like the middle of
absolutely fascinating. It really is. They're huge in the Pacific. They've
really.
toured in Samoa. I was in
Yeah.
Samoa when they filled a football stadium. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like for me as well as a kid, I mean, I come from Liverpool, so the Beatles were never far away.
yeah.
But yeah, there's something about the accessibility of like Bob Marley, UB40. There's something about the music that just feels like as a kid, like pretty accessible.
It's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful thing about simple music is it's like it's so accessible. It takes you to a place straight away. You know, and yeah, and I think especially Polynesia really like they're like, I love this music, you know, reggae music. They're just like, yep, this suits us.
Yeah,
We can roll with this.
yeah, it's the same vibe. Do you have any UB40 songs that you go to?
Oh man, I loved the one I remember them doing is Kingston Town.
Yeah.
And you know, like oh, far out, they're so good. You know what? I actually supported UB40.
What?
They came to Australia and they did 3 shows.
Yeah.
And we got to support them in Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Perth. It was such a weird. We were like, why are they doing those cities? And it turns out they're big Polynesian communities.
Ah, okay.
And my mum, you know, she's a dancer, so I get her to dance on some of my shows. I play a few traditional Samoan songs, and she was so pumped. Like, you know, like normally she's just pretty calm and cool, but like the fact that it was UB40, it was such a big thing. She was calling all her cousins and brothers, and she's like, I'm going to meet UB40. And, you know, sure enough, we played our show and it was full of Polynesians. And so we did the Samoan song and they were all singing it. Even the security guards were Samoan. And then my mum came on stage and UB40 didn't say anything about the set. All they said was like, oh, we love your mum. We love your mum. So it was a pretty epic experience, you know.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. So you managed to, so you said like when you were touring, you managed to like connect with Polynesians like all around the world. That just seem to be like a really big community. Like it's easy to find feeling that like connection and like feeling at home, no matter where you are.
Yeah, it's really it is, you know, it is about community, that culture. So I think if there's a thread, you know, they'll find it. And you know, even just last year I was in Germany, and you know, some aunties, like these Samoan women, were in the front row, like all dressed up, and they've lived in Germany for 40 years, you know. And one of them told me that she used to dance with my mum in Samoa, you know, and it's just like, it's a spin out, and it's faster than the internet, you know, the island, the island auntie, they get through. Yeah.
Anti-grapevine. Being exposed to music from an early age, like what was like younger, kind of like adolescent, teenage Bobby into?
Yeah.
Was it all music, or was there anything else going on with?
I was into sport.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's another, you know, I guess that's another thing from my mum. Or my dad was really into sport as well. So, you know, I think, you know, when you have kids, I guess you've got to try and spend their energy somehow. And that's like, me and my brother were pushed into sport. And, you know, I used to do athletics. Like that was my thing, being a sprinter. And, you know, I used to train like 3-4 times a week, and go to comps every weekend. And, you know, it was fun. I remember those days like really fondly. And I think they actually helped me now because of the training thing. You know, I sort of somehow operate the same way. The music world is very different, art and sport, but it actually is quite similar in the dedication, or the, you know, like even just the breathing. Like I remember having to breathe a certain way to get through a race, and I still do the same thing if I've got like a big drum roll that I have to do, or, you know, like I've got like a really intense song, and then I'll kind of like treat it like a race. So yeah, I was, you know, growing up, I was obviously into sport, and I was into metal. I got into like Metallica, and you know, like I even had like a Slayer record. And yeah, I just, you know, I think you're influenced by your friends a lot. And, you know, I think like a teenage boy, you're just like, you know, I want to listen to something rocking. And yeah, so I had my first 2 CDs I bought was Metallica and Justice for All, and Bob Marley, Catch a Fire.
Nice.
They helped me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting, like learning about people's like youths and those little routines and the discipline that you create, because you can see there's, you know, to be an athlete, you have to have that consistency. You have to go out there and train sometimes when you don't want to train. You have to have that like continuous effort. And I just think it's such a good grounding for kids as they grow up, just like having that like basis and stuff. I did a bunch of things. I did rugby, I did karate, but I was training like 6 days a week for like karate, and I can see, looking back then, how that's influenced like later. So yeah, it's interesting to hear that. So you're pretty quick. Still got some wheels.
I don't know if I do anymore. Hey, I've just changed from like feet to hands, I guess.
Yeah.
I was pretty good. I was a tidy little sprinter for a while.
Yeah, amazing. So Metallica.
Yeah.
Are we gonna go there?
Wow, I don't know if I can pull it out. Hey, I do remember this acoustic track that was on one of those albums. Yeah, I just think it's incredible how that band is so well known. Like they're one of the biggest ever, I think, because have you seen, there's videos of them playing in Russia to like millions, and but there was one of their tracks. That's all I know the intro, but there's some of their melodies like are actually really, it's really quite beautiful, you know, and it's just they're just great songwriters, and you know I think every guy that played drums in their teens wanted to be Lars, you know, and like even like he was with Tama and everyone wanted the drum kit, and like I even remember having like a drum kit pamphlet. I'd never played a drum kit, but I had like the pamphlet, and I just like would look at it, you know, just like stare at it for hours, imagining like, oh, one day I'll be able to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you actually get a drum kit and actually start playing?
Yeah, it was. I was about 15, and I basically begged my parents since I was, you know, for years. I just remember. I feel like it was my whole childhood. I was just like, "Can I play drums? I want to play drums." And they're like, "No, you don't need to play drums." And I actually remember the first time I had a go at a drum kit was I might have been 12 or 13, and then I asked the music teacher at school, because there was one that arrived at school. I said, "Can I play that?" And then they rejected me.
Oh,
No. But I just pestered him so much that one lunchtime he said, "All right, come to lunch and you can play." And I'd thought about it so much, like I'd visualize it, that I got on and I could just play it. I knew like these beats because I imagined it. And then from then on, I was just like, yeah, I'm a drummer. And yeah, pestering my mum and dad, they ended up buying like the most terrible drum kit. It was like, I think it cost them maybe $50, and it was from a friend that left it outside. So the cymbals were rusty, the skins were terrible, but yeah, it lived in the shed and I played it so much.
I was going to say, because it's a tricky one with the drums, isn't it? It's not like as you learn it for the people around you, there's no hiding from that, right? It's
There's
not like
no hiding. Yeah, exactly. So I had to have like towels and pillows and stuff all over it, but I don't know. I remember the joy, you know, and I still think like that joy is really important. And I still go back there when I play music, like, or try to remember that, because that's the reason why I started and that's why I do it. And if I can get to that place of joy, then it's like, then stuff just happens, you know?
Yeah. So had you played the guitar or ukulele at that point, or you straight into the drums?
I was straight into the drums. I could play a little bit, but only because my uncles were like, "I'm too drunk to play it, you're playing it." And like, I didn't know that they were drunk at the time, but I was like, why am I always playing the guitars for you? So, you know, I never really called myself a guitarist or a ukulele player or a singer. I was like, definitely like picked drums first.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this, there's almost like these two camps of thought. There's this idea that like with kids, and this has come over the last like 15, 20 years, that you get them into a specific area and that's what they do and that's what they focus. And then, you know, you create the next like Tiger Woods, for example, from like hitting golf balls from like 2, and by the time they're like 6, they're doing all these things. And that seemed to be all the rage. And I think it was from like, I think Malcolm Gladwell kind of popularized it with the whole like 10,000 hours thing on a certain thing. And so you got all these like, you know, tiger mums like forcing the kids into certain instruments and all the violinists. And then the other side kind of came out, which was this idea of like range. And so, you know, you have someone like Roger Federer, from like tennis player, who grew up playing soccer and all of these different things, didn't really like focus on like tennis to like 14, 15 and from then it did. So it's just interesting hearing to someone who's being so diverse in, you know, sprinting or playing different instruments, and today like your career is your career and you do a bit of both. But interested to get your take on that.
Yeah, that is. I've never even thought of it like that too, because I guess you know, like I said, it definitely wasn't the Tiger Woods version. You know, it was I felt like I had that choice, and it was a really hard, specific choice to like take on music, you know, and I remember that wasn't until early 20s, you know. Yeah. Interesting.
I'm really interested in this like idea of, so you learn, you at some point you do develop some sort of like mastery over what you're doing. Like when you play now, to Mon and I listening to this, and to anyone listening to this, it feels like mastery of like what you're doing. But there's there's a long road to actually get there. And so I'm just like so intrigued by like that process for you.
Yeah. It's like I'm all about the journey. Hey, I love it. I think it's I love hearing about people's journeys, and that's what inspires me. And like it is like, and it actually feels pretty amazing to look back. And as like I'm getting older, like I have to look further, and it's like, wow, it's so cool. It's actually amazing that, this thing that I loved, the drum kit, was my thing. It's something that I do, and I get lots of joy from it, and I survive from it too. And even just writing songs, I remember when I first started writing songs, it was just for fun. It wasn't, I wasn't like, okay, this is my business, this will be quite well. And I got lots of resistance when I was considering being a full-time musician, because I was an athlete. My parents, they paid lots of money they struggled and worked to put me in a good school to get, a good education. And so like when I was kind of chatting with them that I wanted to do music, they were like, whoa, hang on a minute. And, and yeah, I guess without any of that journey or those feelings or those moments or jumping in the deep end, like I just wouldn't be sitting in this awesome dome with you, So it's it's actually funny. I've thought of this song. I'm going off. One of the very first songs I wrote was this song called "One to Wait," and like I don't know, there's something in the simplicity of like lots of different artists that I like. There's all this talk around that their first work is the best, and it's hard to eclipse it or to get close to it. And lots of artists that I know that have famous songs that they wrote early, they really don't like playing them because because it's simple, or it's like it's their first go. And there is something in that, I don't know what it is. There's something in the magic of like the first time you do something, the freshness, the maybe like you don't have as many filters. But I wrote this song. It's called "One to Wait," and it's so simple. It's literally 3 chords. It was like the first song I ever recorded. And it also even was the first song that got played on a radio station. And like the whole thing is about, it's about being patient and like waiting and like knowing that there's a journey ahead and just doing the journey. And it's just kind of been quite bizarre that it's like, because it's one of the first songs I wrote, I have to sing it every time. And like, I reckon I've sung it thousands of times. And like, even now I'm still like, it's this reminder to me. It's like, just, just enjoy the journey, enjoy whatever's going on.
I think I see it coming. I feel it in the air. Cocoon is open, my groove is flowing. Yeah. It seems so easy now. I know I'm bound not to lose tread. Oh, the picture's there, the road's long ahead. Yeah, I'll be the one to wait. Yeah, I'll be the one to wait.
That was literally the first song you ever wrote.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was, I think there was a few before then, but I have no idea. That was the first one I wrote and recorded. I got into this music university it was a long process to get in and lots of negotiating with my parents. But the degree was about it was to teach you how to record your music rather than how to play. And the first day, I was so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely want to record music. And the first day we learned how to use the equipment. And then that night I went into the studio and recorded that song.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so great. So another first that I'm digging into. So I'm really loving exploring this idea of like flow and flow state, which is great timing because you have an album called Flow.
Yes.
So I've been doing all it's like great second. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
So I'm literally doing all this reading at the moment about like how to get into flow state. Like what is flow state? What is the neurochemical like breakdown of flow state, like noradrenaline and dopamine and all these like concoctions of in your brain. And there's all these like little triggers to put you in flow state, which I'm trying to understand and learn about and share with like the Soma retreats. But it does seem that musicians do seem to experience that feeling of flow. So that feeling where the attention becomes really focused. There's like a little bit of extra challenge than what they're used to. They reckon it's like the best can be like 4 or 5% harder or more different than what you're used to. And in these conditions, this kind of time starts to disappear, and things start like operating differently. And so I wonder with you, with either the drums or guitar or ukulele, or when you're writing, have you experienced this state, and like what was your like earliest recollections of just being in this zone, this flow state?
Oh man, we could be here for hours. I love this stuff. I definitely have experienced it, and for me, it's like it's the goal. You know, it's a place that's, you know, that I actually have so much respect for, and to the point where, like, where I got to these days is like I know I can't have it all the time, and I shouldn't, you know, and I think I was pretty lucky to feel it. Well, I actually think we all feel it when we're young, you know, when we're in like, any time that the time just flies, you know, we've got to be touching on it there, because the consciousness is you're on autopilot. And, you know, I definitely have felt it in sport and in music. And, you know, there's been certain times and where I've experienced by myself, but I love experiencing with other people, you know, or with, and I feel like you can get that in something as simple as a conversation versus like doing an actual activity. And it's gotten to the weird and creepy point now where like I look for it in other people. Like I look for it in if someone's like, you know, if I'm traveling Asia, like I love watching people cook food. It's insane. It's absolutely amazing to see these people, like they're just like throwing the veggies are like meters in the air, and it's not for show. It's just kind of like they're in it, and it's really, you know, it's a really special time in someone's life. And I'm just like, when I look at it, I'm just like, wow, that's incredible. And it's just a really good reminder to me to find that place in my own life, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be on stage, like it's whether it's just mowing the lawn. Like I get the flow state on right on mower sometimes, you know. It's like the blades are nice, you know. Yeah. It's a very, very, I think maybe we're quite similar in the obsession toward it, because it is quite special.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, been influenced a lot by meditation and just that sharpening of focus and like coming to present. But I've also had a lot of experience in sport, and trying to find that optimum feeling. But just even like in trying to find, like, prepare myself for this conversation now, I try and like set up like little triggers, like we were speaking beforehand. Like I did an ice bath beforehand to really, because I know it increases noradrenaline and dopamine like in my system. So I'm going to be more optimal to potentially get into that state, and so just knowing the triggers and trying to set up for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's interesting what you said about the 5% harder
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that, I can
yeah.
really relate to that because, you know, it's I try to, as often as I can, throw myself in terrible situations, you know, or just things that like are a little bit silly. Like, for instance, I went to Ghana to because on a whim, basically, I heard this music that I really, really loved. I was like, what is that? It was a type of drumming. And then I just was like, wow, I need to know where that is. And then someone told me, oh, it's from Ghana. And then I did some research, found a contact that takes tours to Ghana for people to learn drums. I asked him about, like how he goes there. And he just said, oh, here's a phone number for the guy I drum with. And the guy's name was Wheezy. And I literally had a WhatsApp number, and I just texted Wheezy. I said, hey, I want to come to Ghana and learn drums. And he's like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So he said, I'll hook you up with a comm. It'll cost this much. You'll have some teachers. We'll play every day. How long do you want to stay for? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll stay for a month. And then I've literally booked a flight. I'm like, cool, I'm doing it. And a week, this was like a few months before, and then a week before, I'm like, what am I actually doing? I'm going to West Africa by myself. So I arrived in Accra, and then like, I'm the only foreigner on the plane. I'm just like, what is even happening? Like when I walked onto the plane, there was a seat, and I had the window seat, but like there was someone sitting in there, and then someone else was sitting in the other seat, and they're just both looking at me and like, okay, I'm in the middle, I guess now, for like an 8-hour flight. And then got to the airport, and I'm like, it's chaos. And then this guy with like gold chains and sunglasses is like waving at me. And I'm like, uh-oh. And it's Wheezy. And he's rocked up in a Nissan Pulsar with like a full, like, you know, it's got the spoiler, it's like lowered. And I'm like, uh-oh, what am I going to die tonight? And then there's all these guys in the car, and they're all just like on their phones, like taking photos. And I'm like, oh man, what have I done? And we drive, and for 2 hours we're driving out of the city, which is normal roads, but then there starts to be like dirt roads, and like there's people everywhere. It's like full shantytown vibes. It's crazy. Everyone's just like yelling at each other. It's absolute chaos. We drop my bags off at the house. Turns out my accommodations, I'm sharing housing with 16 people. There's like kids, babies everywhere. There's goats out the front. They drop my bag there, and I'm like, am I ever going to see that again? And then they drive me to the market because I have to get my food. And then I'm straight into this West African market in Nungwa, and like there's colours, people shouting, yelling. They're all just like yelling at me. I went to the ATM, and I got like only 150 Australian out, but they didn't have any big notes. So I've got like a wad of cash about this big in my pocket walking around. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm definitely going to get mugged. Oh man, it was so full on. That night I didn't sleep a wink. Like I'm kind of like, what have I done here? Like this is the dumbest idea. I'm here for a month, and like there's no shower. It's showering out of a bucket. It's like, it's a scene. And then the next day, that night Wheezy's like, I'm coming at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I wake up, go to the spot, and 9 o'clock, no one's there. 9:30, no one's there. I'm just like, man, what have I just done? 10 o'clock, this one guy comes with like a bunch of drums, doesn't say anything. Then another guy. Wheezy comes about 10:30, and then there's 4 guys. They don't say a word, and then they just start playing drums and singing. And it was like, right at that moment, I was like, I'm exactly where I need to be. It was like, and their feeling of flow, the way that they were singing together, the way that they were playing together, like I'm getting the mithers, I'm getting goosebumps now, but it's just like, it's so special. They're so in the present, they're so in the moment. And that's something that in my experience with flow, it's like, if you can be in that present, moment, then you've got everything to gain. And that's something that I really loved about that experience. And man, those guys were awesome. We played 6 hours a day every day for the month. They smashed me, absolutely smashed me. And that 5% harder thing, like it really was a challenge for me to like keep up, and I'm not sure if I did, but I know the feeling I had at the moment, and it felt pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's that skill challenge sweet spot. So you need you need the level of skill, but it needs to be a challenge, and it's finding that balance, constantly trying to find that balance. But that's an amazing story, and just a real like insight into you and your curiosity and your bravery, that you would follow your curiosity there. I love it. I want to hear what those drums sound like now.
They're awesome. They're called Pun Logo,
Yeah.
these particular ones, but the thing that attracted me to it was the sounds, and I think like I really love like following those senses. It's just like if it feels good or if there's something about it, you're like, what is it about this place that I like? And then I'm like, I'll just go and find out. I'll try.
Yeah. Follow your curiosity. So were you touring with Xavier this time?
That was with the Xavier.
Yeah. Okay. How was that? How was that experience? Because he was traveling for 5 years or something.
It was special. It really was. It was an amazing, and we're very similar in that he's a feeler. He follows what he feels, and he's brave, and he also he's very clear when he makes a step, whether he's wrong or right, he's going this way. And my time with him, he's still a very awesome and close friend. And we've been on some adventures that I would never have gone on. So it's good to have those people in your life that just push you. Sometimes it can kind of I don't know. I feel like those people in your life play a really big role in who you are. It's because they egg you on, and I know I need a bit of that.
Constantly out of the comfort zone.
Exactly. Yeah. He's all about that.
Really?
Yeah. And even our meeting, we met, which is how the touring started. We met, and he said, let's have a jam, and we had some mutual friends, and that's kind of how we met. We had literally a 20-minute, we played for 20 minutes. And he's like, wow, this feels good. This is great. Let's do a show. First show, Blues Fest, 15,000 people. The set was an hour. I didn't know all the songs. And, I was standing side stage, and I literally was just reminiscing this because I was at Blues Fest performing with him 2 days ago. And it was literally 10 years, 10 years pretty much to the day that gig would happen. I remember standing side stage and thinking, I was so nervous. And I remember feeling how did this is not what I imagined my first gig at Blues Fest would be. And and I can't remember it because it was a blur. I just remember it was probably a bit of flow state, trying to remember songs and fake it. And I got really good at guessing where he was going to go, if he was going to stop. And then basically that started 5 years of touring together. So we went to lots of different amazing places, had lots of really incredible gigs together, and and laughs and good times. And that was that.
What would the soundtrack to that period of time be for you? Is there any songs or experiences or songs that trigger experiences that stand out during that time of touring?
I reckon there was this. We used to listen to a lot of music on tour, because we tour in these tour buses, and so basically you play the show, then after the show you get on the bus, you fall asleep, and then you wake up in the next city, and you do that 50 times, and then and this all around Europe, all around America. So when we're on the bus, often you're still wired from the gig, so we're playing music and listening. And we got into a big Bill Withers phase where we were listening to old soul music because we love the drummer James Gadsden. And I do a cover of this a bit, but there's this song called Just the Two of Us, and we used to laugh because the first time we toured together it was just a duo, and we used to call it the two dogs, one bowl tour.
I see the crystal raindrops fall, and the beauty of it all when the sun comes shining through. To see these rainbows in my mind when I think of you sometimes, I wanna spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us, just the two of us, just the two of us, building castles in the sky, just the two of us, you and I. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building castles in the sky. Just the two of us. You and I.
Love that. That's awesome. So Xavier was a big influence on you.
Yeah.
You toured for a long time. How did you go making the jump from, I mean, it was very intimate, you playing guitar, playing drums, but how did you go from being the support to being the lead artist, being the front man? What role does Xavier play in that, or what was your experience of that? Because one of the things that we work with people a lot is just people who are in this zone of doing something at the present time, and they want to make the jump to something else, and that could be a different career, or it might be starting a company, or it might be starting a new relationship. There's that scary place which I'm intrigued about. So what's that place look like from you, and how did you go to get the courage to actually make the leap?
Oh man, you're so right. It was hard. It was really hard. And yeah, you know how like there's that saying is like take a leap of faith, and it's like you jump. I actually think the jump is all right. It's the free falling and like the continuous free fall, which is the hard part. It's like one thing to jump, but then like to actually keep falling is really tough. And I actually feel like my body was telling me before my head was that it was time to stop, and to move on. And the hard thing for me was that I wasn't uncomfortable. I was very comfortable. It's the first time in my life that I was actually earning good money. At one stage I was playing in like 12 bands just to kind of make it work. And then all of a sudden I meet this amazing human, and we're traveling around the world, and like I'm doing what I've dreamed about. I'm playing to like thousands of people in places like in Italy and France. It's just like, how is this even real? And, Dave also never asked me to play. He never asked me to do, anything. He just said, you be you do your thing. So it's the perfect gig, And this was actually similar to the Ghana time. And I think part of like going to Ghana was like me discovering, parts of myself and things that I really want to concentrate on, and where I really, the spaces that I enjoy being in. And I remember I came home from this tour. Whenever I come home from tour, I was sick. I'd always be sick. And it would take me so long to recover. And I was losing weight. Like I couldn't put weight on. and I just felt like something was not right and not up. And it was actually also the same time that I was really starting to think about flow. And it's where I started writing the Flow album, because I was like, I knew when I was in flow, and at that time I was like, man, I'm out of flow right now. I don't know what I need to do to get back in. And then like through, just this process, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to like do my own thing. And it was like a real heavy moment, because it was like, there was also a bit of grief. I was like, but that means I have to kind of leave. And I knew that I'd have to leave what I was currently doing with Zabe, because it was taking up lots of time. You know, that whole concept of like your garden bed has got all your veggies in it, and you need to pull some out to put some other ones in, you know. And mine was full, and I needed to change it up. And I remember specifically feeling when I had the first idea of like, you should leave Zabe and start concentrating on your own music. Like, as scary as it was, it felt like there was a sense of relief, even just the thinking of like, actually, okay, let's do this. And I remember thinking, I was actually in Sardinia at the time. It was after a tour. I was sick. Me and my partner went to Sardinia, hired a scooter, and was just like driving around to different places. And you know, we stayed in campgrounds, and it was kind of in that space with her in conversation where I was like, actually it's time to go. And far out. And I remember from then on, it was just like a one step at a time situation. It was really hard to tell him, because I loved him, and I was like, oh man, I have to go. But he got it, you know, he's just like, yeah, man, I get it. And so I booked in my last tour with him, which would have happened over that summer in Australia. And I knew I had a dream that I was like, and in my dream I was like, you need a manager. So I was like, all right. So I found a manager, and then I finished all these songs that were about flow, and that was the start of like taking on Bobby Alu full time. Was this album called Flow. And I still remember the first gig. It was like, I had two gigs to start. One was the Commonwealth Games, which was a really big gig. It was a big deal. Yeah. You know, I co-wrote this song to be part of the closing ceremony. And it was kind of a bit of a weird situation, because I had to mime. I've never mimed in my life. And so like I'm at this this closing ceremony, broadcast to like, you know, millions of people. I'm on TV, like literally miming, just going like, what am I even doing here? And then I get all these texts from people that's from high school, just go, oh my gosh, you're going so well, you're doing really well. And I'm just like, I'm miming. I have no job, you know, like I'm like, oh, you've got no idea. And then the day after, I flew to Western Australia for the first show. There was 9 people at the show, and then like I came home, flew back to Brisbane. It's 2:00 in the morning. On my drive home, my car broke down, and I waited till 4 a.m. to like, you know, for the RACQ to pick me up, and I had to get dropped at my parents' house. So I'm sleeping in my parents' house after like losing all this money, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Miming the night before. I was like, this is, I have no idea what I've just done to myself. But that was the start.
That was the start. I mean, there's so much there to unpack. I mean, it's so interesting hearing you articulate that story, because I hear that story in other people, and I generally call it burnout. You know, and so it's almost like the term these days in a lot of like the corporate world, or a lot of leaders. But essentially, when you're operating in a space where you're in like a zone of excellence, but you're not in your zone of genius, it's actually the space that can actually really like burn you out as a person. Wow. So you could be doing something that you could be very competent at, you could be getting very well paid for, but the reality of it is it's not the thing that you're meant to be doing at that point. And if you stay in it for too long, as people do, that's where they get burnt out. And so that's something that we've been trying to identify and articulate with people with our visionary retreat, for example. So it's interesting hearing you talk about it, but it's also just interesting just hearing that nadir moment, that part. It's that hero story, right? It's the part in any good story where the hero is broken down, they're at that low point, and they use that point then as the springboard. It's in every movie, right? It's every part of the hero's journey. Every hero needs to go through it, but when you're in it, it's oh my God, what am I doing now?
Why we do that?
Yeah.
That's.
But that's where the growth is, right? That's where the opportunity to expand is. But
the edge of discomfort, it's that line.
Yeah. So really interesting to hear you talk about that. So I mean the album flow and even the song, when I was listening to some of your tracks, It's Time sounded like a bit of an allegory. I was wondering if that was what was kind of going on. It was almost, it felt to me as though it was a statement that, okay, I need to step forward, listening to those lyrics. Yeah. Is that the case, or am I reading?
No, it is.
That?
It's you've, I think you've just revealed that my songs are pretty much my diary.
Yeah.
It's and I think that is the case with lots of artists, but you're totally right. It is, it's it's I think having a diary is amazing, and I have, I'm envious of my friends that have taken diaries their whole life. I'm wow, I wish I did that. And then more and more I realize I do it. I just sing it, and it's kind of a bit cryptic sometimes, but it's cool. But it's totally like that. There's lots of songs that are about that time and that place. And another one is there's a song called Other Side, which is explores this whole concept of when you're looking too far ahead, you sort of, I'm not in the now, and that's kind of another thing that I really try to kind of do a lot, is just be here now, and I figure that's all that we've got, actually that's the only thing that's ever happening. And I guess, a song like It's Time is really I sing it hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's I'm finding new meanings for me in it, and other people's meanings that they're expressing to me too. It's it's definitely it is one that keeps coming up. Is this the state we've been searching for? No mistake, it's time to reshore. 'Cause you seem to be feeling beat, no attention on the seats, always gearing up for more. Got to love complimentary rides, the elation you can't hide. What will you bring out that door? Ooh it's time. You feel so right. No need to change the vibe. Oh, sweet, and it feels right. There's no doubt that we felt like this before. And I keep spinning out. It's not something that I can ignore. It's time. You feel so right. It's time. Whoa, ooh it's time. You
change the vibe. Oh, sweet, and it feels right. Ooh, yeah, it's time. You know you feel so right. No need to change the vibe. Oh, sweet, and it feels right.
Cheers.
Yeah, there's definitely like getting to know you more and more over the last like little while. There's definitely a positivity to you as a person, and just like even in the research that I was doing, and just even this conversation now, it just that little bit more depth of understanding about who you are. You can see like where that positivity and like that mindset like comes from. So it's really interesting to hear that like in the music and in the conversation as well.
Cool.
It's very motivational, Bobby.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, you've been an individual artist now for, is it like 14, 15 years?
Yeah.
14, it's a long time. So I'm really intrigued by the creative process of an artist. And I'm interested to hear how that creative process has evolved, has changed, or has not changed at all for you over that period of time.
Yeah.
So the actual creation process of writing and creating music.
It has changed, and in the sense that it's like I really, really know now that it's important to me, that it means a lot, not just for my music, but just for the way I live, and and the way that creativity inspires everything and everyone. It really is a special. I feel like my relationship with creativity means that I am inspired by other people's creativity, and I feel like there's so much creativity out there and artists out there. Like I feel like everyone has a form of artistry, and if you can kind of own it, then it can be a really special relationship. And I just, the reason why I say that is I see it in my dad. He's a builder, and he's a boat builder, and for my whole life I've thought I got everything, everything from my mum. My dad's just the builder and my mum's the musician and the artist. And she has an incredible ear and sense of rhythm, and the way that she sings is so natural and amazing. But my dad's actually the one that's really creative, and because he can make something from nothing. And I really feel connected to him in that way. Like when I look at his shed, his garage is like, it's the messiest thing you've ever seen. It's like there's stuff everywhere, bits of wood that he's saving for later, screws and everything. And now when I look at it, it reminds me of like a painter's room, like, with the easel everywhere and there's like paints, and it's like, it's chaos, but it's not actually chaos. Like he does know that there's a bit of Quila over around there, or that there's a bit of cedar over here. And that if he, that he uses this type of steel, it's going to be better than the other. And he invents all this stuff, and it's pretty amazing, and I have conversations with him now about him being an artist, and he's like, yeah, maybe you're right, and he feels that way. And I know I've got like an uncle that works in, he's a lawyer, but the way that he's also a writer, the way that he writes, and it's pretty amazing to see him in his work. And my father-in-law is an incredible gardener. And so, it's like this, being in touch with this creativity in yourself is really quite liberating. And so, for me in my process, it's like, I'm like all about it. I'm all about how to get there, and also in accepting that it's not always there. I write a song every day now, and sometimes I know that song is not, it's just for me, or it's just like, working on your craft or whatever. It's not going to be something that I release perhaps, or who knows, but I don't put that pressure on on the creative process anymore. I basically just let it happen. You know, sometimes like I'll get a clip sent from, like I got this clip sent by this kid who like bought his first set of bongos. He's like 6 years old, and it was this beat. And so I made a song to that beat, and like, you know, imagined like what it would be like to be him, like playing drums for the first time and responding to him, me responding to him. And then you know, that's a song. And like it goes to that flow state again, because then for that hour that I was doing that, I was completely gone, you know. And I think for me, there's so much that happens in life, and there's so much thinking and like stressing, and that if I can do these things that can just take an hour away, then it's like it's going to be good for me. And yeah, so now like I think when I started playing music, I had like lots of parameters. Like I need to be feeling good, and I'll write the lyrics after I sing a melody. So you know, like I'll you know, have something like you know, like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Yep, that's nice. And then like I'll kind of like think of a melody that sort of goes with it, you know. And then put words to it, you know. I'll be like, oh, what rhymes with, you know, what rhymes with this, what rhymes with that. But yeah, I guess now I feel like there's so much out there, you know, like anything can be creative. And yeah, so I guess now I don't have that many parameters. I just kind of do it, and because I know that I need it.
So you don't have any parameters, for example, like around creating space for yourself, or like time? Like, do you give yourself a set amount of like time in the day or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm trying not to have that. Yeah, because I think that's really, I've had those in the past, and that's really helped me.
Yeah.
You know, I actually joined a songwriting club, and it's a great club. It's called I Heart Songwriting, and it's all online. And their thing is like an hour a week, you got to write a whole song in an hour. And the whole thing about that is just like breaking down the rules that you've made yourself. So, you know, for me at this creative time in my moment, like I'm getting to know where I operate, and yeah, for me, I want to be kind of, you know, the act of creating is more important to me than the space at the moment. You know, I know that I need a good zone, but sometimes that creativity can put me in a good place. You know, if I'm like, sometimes I'll have like all this admin to do, and I'm like, actually, I'll just take a half an hour break and write something, you know. And most of the time it's pretty terrible, but at least, you know, it's like there's surprises sometimes.
Do you feel like you can build once you start creating something? Do you feel like you build on top of it? So for example, like when the kid you mentioned gave you this idea, and you made a connection in your mind of something, started playing with something novel from then. Do you find that once you have like one idea, it leads to two ideas, it kind of like snowballs?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It does. And that's the concept that I really think is powerful.
Yeah.
You know, is that all you need is just one little thread.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of also how I roll, you know, in everything. And it's generally my advice to people are asking me advice. I'm like, oh, why? But in music, especially because I have been doing it a long time, and because there is this separation of like music business and creativity, and they're very different. And most of the time, the business part, the industry really bogs down the creativity. It really hurts. And, you know, it was actually specifically the reason why I got a manager, because I'm writing songs about emailing, and I'm like, no one wants to hear about that. So, you know, but yeah, like you can be creative in business and creative in the way that you tour and the way that you approach the industry. So yeah, for me, like I'm really always thinking of different ways to tour or to, stuff that I'm really into that might not necessarily be the normal thing to do. However, I know that I'm going to resonate with it because like I created it, or like I had a level in creating it. And I feel like when you create something, you've already got this momentum behind it because there was this magic of creativity. And that could be the edge that you need to like push further or to do something a little longer than you normally would.
It creates that gravity kind of pulling you.
Yeah.
Once you start, it's just creating the initial momentum.
Totally.
Yeah,
Just a little nudge.
Little nudge.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so you've got a new EP out, I believe. I've been listening to. So the lead song on that is Do It.
Nice.
Again.
Yeah. Do it. I see. Here's my diary's out again, out in the open. Yeah.
It'd be great to hear that and just what your thought process has been around that and like where that's come from.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole like, I have a little team, in a business team that I work with to help with whatever the industry is doing. And, like usually you make a whole album and you give it to them and then we get the publicity sorted and, it all just kind of rolls out that way. So they know generally you pick the songs that are most radio friendly or that are going to perhaps connect better than others. And ultimately you never know, but that's just the usual way. And my poor manager, she's like, what's the album sound like? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, well, and I just tell her like, I want to lead with this song. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, because I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I want to be brave and I want to do the things I want to do. And, like that's pretty much, this song is so literal and she's kind of forced to like, okay, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. And she's got agents in Europe asking her about like, what's the album feel like? And she's having to like string these words together and, she's incredible that way that she does that. But, this is, for me at the moment, I really feel like action is such a big part of the creative process because, I feel like I have all these dreams and thoughts and, like until I do them, I don't actually know how they really feel or what they really are, how it's going to work. And, I even figure now, like if I fail, I'm like, I had to go. So I know that this is what I'm not into. And, I guess there's so much internal thought within music industry and but also just life that it's like, man, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to like, so let's do the things, if you want to do it, then you should just do it. That's kind of where this came from. Yeah.
Collecting promises, storing for another day. Time to make a move. It's time to make your play. Oh, if you wanna do it. Oh, then you should do it. When you left it out to dry, you left it a day too long. Trying to find a place to hide, but you left the light on. Building a fire, found a log, but you got no wax. At least if you do something, it's better than too much chat. I say, oh, if you wanna do it. Oh, then you should do it. You should just do it. So come on, you gotta just do it. So come on. The house will with no roof, no shelter from a storm. A life with no failure, no stories to tell it all. We ride along and hear the words, all the things we tell ourselves. And if we don't try to do the things we say, then what's the use? Beautiful ideas created, and watch these dreams fade away if we don't even try and have a go. If we don't even try and have a go. I say, oh, oh, if you wanna do it. Oh, oh, then you should do it. Oh, oh, if you wanna do it. Oh, oh, then you should do it.
Love it. I feel like that should be like the theme tune of our visionary retreat playing in the background. Need to get you in as like a guest presenter or something.
Oh man, no, I want to do it. I want to be there, learn it.
It's so good. Bobby, it's been awesome. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this.
Me too.
It's been great to listen to you, just hear the depth of like where things are coming from, and just understanding like your mind and your mindset and like what's driven the creative process. And yeah, it's just very cool.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sweet.
That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, me too.